Before getting into the video, I just want to take this time to promote my brand new Discord. Do I know what I'm doing? No. Is it properly set up yet? No. Might it get me arrested? Possibly. Should you join it? Yes. Why? Because it would be really cool if you did. In all seriousness, it's just a better way to connect with me. YouTube comments are finicky and I don't Twitter well, so this makes everything easier. We can talk videos, D&D, whatever. Link to the invite can be found in the description. Alright, on to the video. Going back to even just the 90s, there were huge differences between the capabilities of various video game platforms. Think the differences between the SNES and the Genesis, and in the case of computers, whether your game came on a disc or a set of floppies usually determined how many bells and whistles you were getting for your money. Nowadays, technology has come far enough that we can pretty much play Doom on sundials, so it's no surprise that the differences between these platforms have shrunk over the years. In what is becoming ancient history much more quickly than I'm comfortable with, there was no greater disparity than that between the hardware available for the classic arcade machines and at-home consoles of the 90s. Arcade machines, quite simply, were leagues more powerful than at-home consoles, mainly because they were able to be more specifically designed. In many cases, the typical arcade cabinet only played one game, whereas the at-home console had to be capable of playing dozens upon dozens. And if you think that type of necessary versatility doesn't put a crunch on what you can do technically, boy, have I got a beachfront villa to sell you in Antarctica. Those differences in power didn't stymie the porting of numerous arcade classics to home systems, however. Gauntlet has been on every system known to man. Golden Axe got so popular between arcade and home systems that the franchise actually exclusively split between the two at one point, and it was Altered Beast that served as the included launch title with the Sega Genesis. Altered Beast is a classic, to the point that I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't like it. It's probably fair to proclaim it as one of the most recognizable games of all time, between its distinct graphical style, the cut-ins for the transformations, and, of course,
Rise from your grave.
To this day, there still might not be a better power-up gauge in gaming than progressively turning your character into Mr. Olympia. Guy is on the juice. Of course, it's only made better if you've got a friend to play alongside you, which I don't, because I'm a hermit living in a cave. There is something viscerally enjoyable about this game that almost can't be quantified, that nearly defies logic. And it defies that logic because Altered Beast sucks. Now, before you click away or attempt to lampoon me through the internet, I love Altered Beast. I grew up playing it on my father's Genesis that was kept in my room and loved every second of it, even if I doubt that I ever got past the second level. This game holds a special place in my heart, and nothing will ever change that. But let's be real, as a game alone, it's literally a 10-minute long button masher with a ridiculous premise and is, in stark contrast to a lot of other arcade classics from the time, quite a bit easier than you would probably expect once you know what you're doing. Except for the boss on the fourth stage. That might just be me, but for some reason, I can't beat this goddamn weird, tiny dragon thing. Or was the boss on stage 3 a dragon and this is like a crocodile? I don't know, but he just kicks my ass, alright? It might be an overestimate to say that after an hour, you'll have this game down to a science. So much so that I tried, for the better part of 3 hours, to do a no damage run, mainly because I thought it would be really cool for the video, before eventually accepting that, while it might be easy, it's still a game from the 80s with bosses designed to take your lunch money, and that's just how it is. It's certainly doable, just not with the time I had. It did give me a new appreciation for the very real competitive community that this game has, and kudos to everyone that has the patience to wait for everything to go perfectly to get ladder-worthy runs. Outside of the competitive space, all you're left to do is run through the levels, make sure you kill the White Wolves for their power-ups, and fight Neff. Why does he look like someone that would be named Neff? And why does he only steal your power-ups after you defeat him? I'm just now realizing that Neff sucks at his job, evidently. Anyway, its gameplay is shallow and repetitive, which lends it about zero meaningful replay value, even with a second more difficult run-through becoming available after beating the first. And as a result, it doesn't stack up all that well against the other side-scrolling beat-em-ups of the time. The game is technically sound, don't get me wrong, it looks great, the soundtrack is an absolute banger, and the Genesis port was a rare, faithful representation of the arcade version. We won't talk about the other ports, mainly for the continued health of everyone's eyes. I understand that this might sound like a strange compliment today, but you have to remember that a lot of arcade ports at the time were pretty horrendous. Case in point was something like the NES version of Dragon's Lair. This is not what you played in the arcade. Altered Beast on the Genesis, at least, was, despite some differences in enemy and level layout, as well as the expected downgrades in sound and appearance. Otherwise, the core is kept entirely intact. So, why isn't it good? It's because it was, like many other arcade titles, specifically designed to be played in an arcade. Arcades were far more than simple products of the time or a marketing scheme to prey on the weekly allowances of teenagers. They were an experience that came coupled with a community. You met up with friends, made new ones, and forged lifelong memories. You had to wait your turn until a stick opened up, and if someone was on a heater, if a master of a particular game graced the place with their presence, everyone knew it as you all gathered around the cabinet to watch the maestro at work. Beyond the communal aspects of it all, there is just something different about standing at a cabinet and playing a game. Why do you think they make USB arcade sticks like this one here for at-home use? To deliver that cabinet experience with fighting games, which have their history rooted in the arcade space. And while fighting games have certainly made the shift to at-home consumption well over the years, the reality is that a lot of arcade games lose some of their magic when removed from that atmosphere. It isn't the case with all of them, of course. The aforementioned Gauntlet is great at home, as are titles like Crazy Taxi. Are they better in the arcade? Of course they are, but they're still damn good at home. I highly doubt the same would be said about those racing games built to make it feel like you're actually driving the vehicle in question, or hunting games where you hold a model weapon. Altered Beast is just one of those games that didn't translate well to being played on a couch at home. Honestly, I don't think there's any real rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't rely on the arcade atmosphere any more than any other cabinet game does. It just might so happen that it's a bit more crucial to its success. Maybe it was never meant to be assessed so critically. Maybe it was always meant to be played while waiting for another machine to open up. Maybe its packing with the Genesis/Mega Drive systems, in conjunction with just how faithful it was to the arcade original, lent it cred that it never deserved in the first place. Whatever the reason, the fact of the matter is that Altered Beast is largely defined by the context it's played within. And don't think my opinion is just a jaded case of hindsight or a desire for a spicy video title. Most every review of the countless ports of this game that have been published over the years can basically be summed up as, it's not really that good of a game, but it's Altered Beast, so buy it anyway. And yeah, you should. There's basically no chance you don't have a system to play it on, whether it be a console, PC, or mobile device, and it basically costs nothing. It'll cost you a hell of a lot less than it would have in the arcade, I can promise you that. Arcades are largely on life support nowadays, meaning it's only growing more unlikely that you've got a local one that you can pop over to whenever you've got some quarters burning a hole in your pocket. Even if arcades are slowly dying, that doesn't mean we can't still appreciate the byproducts of what was a golden age in video game history. Don't be too hard on Altered Beast. That the environment it was intended for and previously thrived within hardly exists anymore isn't its fault. Instead, just be thankful that we can still play it at all, and that it's so close to what we once enjoyed.